the formula that secretly runs the modern world. It decides what you see, what you buy, and what you never notice. It operates silently, endlessly, without asking permission, and most people have no idea it exists. To understand why this formula matters today, we need to step back from screens, market, and algorithms and look at the promise mathematics once made. Math was supposed to describe the world, not shape it. Equations explained motion, growth, and balance. They were tools for understanding reality, not engines that drove it. That changed when mathematics met scale. As societies grew more complex, simple rules began controlling massive systems. Decisions multiplied faster than humans could track. Choices needed to be automated. Patterns needed to be optimized. Somewhere in that transition, a single mathematical idea moved from theory into control. At first, it appeared harmless, a way to rank options, to allocate resources efficiently, to decide what mattered most when everything could not be handled at once. The formula was elegant, minimal. It rewarded efficiency and punished waste. And because it worked, it spread. Soon, it was everywhere. In logistics, deciding which shipments move first. In finance, determining risk and reward. In technology, ranking information by relevance. The same structure, reused endlessly, adapting to new domains without changing its core logic. What made this formula powerful was not complexity, but consistency. It reduced messy human behavior into comparable values. Different things could now be measured on the same scale. Attention, profit, time, and probability became interchangeable. Once that happened, decisions accelerated, but something subtle was lost in the process. The formula did not understand meaning. It optimized outcomes based on inputs it was given. And as more systems adopted it, those inputs began shaping the world in its image. At first, nobody noticed. The changes were gradual, invisible, but over time, the formula stopped describing reality and started deciding it, and that was only the beginning. As the formula spread, its influence deepened in ways few anticipated. Systems built around it began feeding on their own outputs. What performed well was promoted. What lagged behind was quietly removed. Over time, success stopped being discovered and started being manufactured. This created a subtle distortion. The formula assumed the future should resemble the past, only more efficient. It rewarded patterns that already existed and ignored possibilities that did not fit its logic. Novelty struggled. Risk became measurable. Creativity was filtered through probability. In markets, this meant capital flowed toward what already worked. In media, attention clustered around familiar themes. In technology, recommendations narrowed experience instead of expanding it. The formula did exactly what it was designed to do. It optimized, and optimization began reshaping behavior. What made this dangerous was invisibility. Few people ever saw the formula directly. They experienced only its effects. Rankings felt natural. Outcomes felt deserved. Inequality looked like efficiency. The math removed friction, but also removed context. As reliance increased, human judgment faded. Decisions were deferred to models. Models were trusted because they were mathematical. And mathematics carried an aura of neutrality. But neutrality was an illusion. The formula reflected the values encoded into it, amplified by scale. This is where tension quietly emerged. The same equation that made systems efficient also made them brittle. When assumptions failed, collapse was sudden. Feedback loops accelerated mistakes instead of correcting them. And because the formula was everywhere, failure propagated fast. The world was no longer guided by a single decision. It was guided by a single logic. And that logic was indifferent to consequences. The conflict reached its peak when people realized the formula was no longer optional. Entire systems depended on it. Turning it off meant chaos. Supply chains would stall. Information would overload. Decisions would grind to a halt. What began as a tool had become infrastructure. This dependence revealed a deeper problem. The formula optimized for measurable outcomes, not meaningful ones. It could maximize engagement without understanding truth. It could minimize costs without accounting for harm. And because it learned from data, It reinforced whatever patterns already dominated. Attempts to fix this often failed. Tweaks improved one metric, while damaging another. Constraints slowed efficiency, but reduced reach. Each adjustment revealed the same truth. The formula could not resolve moral questions. It could only execute them. This created a dangerous illusion of control. Leaders believed outcomes were inevitable because the math said so. Responsibility blurred. Decisions were attributed to models rather than people. Accountability dissolved into equations. As systems grew larger, small errors became amplified. A bias in input produced massive distortions at scale. And because the formula operated continuously, there was little time to intervene. Correction always lagged behind consequence. The emotional core of the conflict was simple. Humanity had built systems that moved faster than reflection. The formula rewarded speed, consistency, and scale. But wisdom required pause, context, and judgment, and the world was running out of pauses. The resolution began when people stopped treating the formula as an oracle and started treating it as a tool again. Mathematics was never meant to replace judgment. It was meant to inform it. Once that distinction returned, systems began to change. Designers introduced friction where blind optimization once ruled. Transparency exposed hidden assumptions. Multiple models replaced single answers. Instead of asking what performed best, decision makers began asking what should matter at all. The formula did not disappear. It couldn't. It was too deeply woven into modern life, but its role shifted. It became one voice among many, not the final authority. Efficiency was balanced with resilience. Scale was tempered with oversight. This change revealed a deeper truth. The formula never secretly ran the world on its own. People handed it control one decision at a time because it felt safer than uncertainty. Mathematics did not demand power. It was given power. Today, the future depends on remembering that difference. Equations can guide us, but they cannot choose our values. Optimization can improve systems, but it cannot define what a good outcome is. Sometimes the smallest shift in perspective becomes the beginning of a new future.